I think the postseason was full of surprises, all kinds of drama and excitement, I think, to make this season very memorable for all the teams in the league.
Welcome to episode 417 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. It's hard to believe, but the 2026 baseball season is winding down and fast. A sure sign of that is all the provincial and national championships being held, and we're starting to get into the stretch drive professionally. And maybe one of the biggest signs is the Western Canadian Baseball League season has come to a close. A big thanks to everyone who's taken the time over the last few weeks to consume all our extra content coming out of the All-Star break and then into the postseason run, as well as all our coverage of the Saskatoon Berries knocking off the Sylvan Lake Gulls to claim the Harry Hallis Memorial Trophy last weekend. And now it's the off-season. And if I were a betting man, I'd say this fall and winter could be quite busy and consequential to the league going forward. To dive into the season that was and look ahead to 2027, my partner in baseball crime is here, live from his vacation on the West Coast. Ian Wilson, thanks for joining us, my friend.
Thanks for having me. The best never rest, and I don't either.
Fair enough. So I've got you for a few minutes here. I wanted to dive into the WCBL season, a little bit of a retrospective and a little bit of a look ahead. Let's start with the former. And when you look back on the 2026 season, how are you going to remember it?
Yeah, but mostly fondly. I think, June was a bit rough with all the rain and such. And I remember early in the season thinking, well, it's okay if it's going to rain at any point. Early's better because then you can work the games in later in the season. But I didn't expect quite that many games to be impacted. So that was a bit of a rough start. But I kind of look at it somewhat in a bookended way. Like one of the first interviews of the season was at the Rural Roots Baseball Classic in Cardiff, Saskatchewan, and it was with none other than Ethan Murdoch. And I remember standing with him on the field after that game, and the Berries had won that game over the Weyburn Beavers rather handily, and it was a great event. Blair Beck, Carter's dad, was there doing a lot to make that game take place. And it struck me at the time just how professional Ethan Murdoch sounded in his interviews. I had interviewed him before, and he was always a good interview. But he just he looks the part of a ball player, looks the part of an athlete, and he just he sounds that way too in interviews in a positive way. And then to be fast forward to the end of the season, we're at Carnes Field. Ethan has just lifted the Harry Hallis Memorial Trophy. He was the first one for the Berries to do it. And again, kind of closing it out with another great interview and chat with him. And of course, we ran into his father and family at that game as well. So it's just, there's something. I'm a big believer in kind of the circle of things and how don't play the Lion King theme, but I do kind of like when you get the start and end of something really kind of coincide nicely. So I will think of the season in those terms. Wishing Ethan all the best, and I think we got treated to, for the most part, a really good baseball season, if not with some hiccups along the way.
For sure. And we won't necessarily dissect all of the things that have happened over the course of the last couple of months here, because we've done it basically on a week-to-week basis. But when you look at especially that championship, you and I haven't done this on the record yet, but Sylvan Lake, Saskatoon doing battle in that best of three, you and I were kind of expecting that to be a little bit more of a battle, a little bit more of a challenge. And especially game two, Saskatoon just took it to Sylvan Lake. What do you think was the difference maker in your eyes that allowed Saskatoon to emerge victorious?
Yeah, I think both teams, and really when we got down to the final four, I thought all teams, Moose Jaw and Okotoks included in that. I thought all four were strong championship contenders. And so when you kind of looked at the field at that point, it was tough to figure out who was going to advance. And I think the only thing I had predicted out of that divisional series was that all the games would go the full 3 games in the best of 3 series.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wrong. I was wrong about that. But, Sylvan Lake, when you got down to Sylvan Lake and Saskatoon, again, you had 2 worthy teams, 2 teams who hadn't won a championship, but were certainly should have been there, deserved to be there. And I think when Sylvan Lake kind of had a shaky first game, they hit at least 5 batters, I think, in game 1. They made 3 errors, and at that point, it was just kind of like that, and it was still close throughout that game, and they just couldn't get back into it. And I think that was kind of their shot, to kind of get into that series. And then the next one, they just couldn't get a footing there. And credit to Saskatoon's pitching, they just shut them down. Like they had a few more looks in game 2, like in terms of getting runners on base, Sylvan Lake did, but they just couldn't cash. And Saskatoon's pitching was the depth of it and the strength of it just really shined through.
Mm-hmm. When it's Joe Carnahan at the helm, you have to know that eventually things are going to go their way. After 2 years of getting close, they finally get to the championship, and then he himself gets to raise his 7th, the team's first. Should we be surprised at all that the Saskatoon Berries are finally champions?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think in talking to Hilty, president of the team there, Steve Hildebrand, he said, did we expect it this fast? No, but we'll take it. And I think that just shows you that they set everything in motion, and they just had a good organization from the get-go. And when you run things the way they do, like you're going to have that. They also hosted the All-Star game this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's in their 3rd year. Like that's a big event, and that's a big logistical challenge for an organization to take on. They took that on and put together a great weekend. It wasn't just a day one or a 1-day event. It was a full weekend this time. So, only organizations that are really well run can do something like that. And of course they had the pieces in place. And I said this too, I thought Sylvan and Saskatoon both probably had teams that weren't as good as last year. So, to see them win with maybe not their best team is impressive to me.
Mm-hmm. Shout out shout out to the Saskatoon Berries, WCBL champion. A shout out as well to the Sylvan Lake Gulls getting to the championship for a second time around. Heartbreak for a second year as well. Maybe things will turn around. They get to host the All-Star game in 2027, and maybe they'll get to raise the Harry Hallis Trophy in that season as well. Speaking of looking forward, we're going to do that in just a few minutes, but first, we had League President Kevin Kvame on the final WCBL report of the season with myself and Clark Monroe a few days ago. Ian and I will take a look at some of the things he said and pontificate on 2027 in a few minutes. But first, here's that conversation with Kevin Kvame.
Kevin, obviously it finished in a very interesting fashion with the Saskatoon Berries taking it 2 games out of 3 over the Sylvan Lake Gulls. So your thoughts, I guess, your reflections on the postseason as we come now into the week following and the offseason kicking off.
Well, I think it was, I think the postseason was full of surprises. Only 2 series went the limit, which was unusual, I guess, for the WCBL when we so often we see those best of 3s go the distance. It was a surprising, I guess, and even the final, going into it, I expected it to go to 3 games, and it did not play out that way.
Yeah, when Saskatoon snuck out game 1, I thought, they have a chance to do it at home in 2. And that's out of the ordinary, I guess, for the last few years, for sure, as you mentioned. Let's look back at the whole season, Kevin. Obviously, there were some challenges. Let's start with the positives, though. What were some big successes for you guys as a league, team to team, coming out of the 2026 season?
I thought the season was really competitive from start to finish. You saw a lot of right out of the gate, the Weyburn Beavers were a surprise. Swift Current is starting to build their way back after a disastrous 2025 season. The Lethbridge Bulls were unbeatable in the month of June and then kind of fell off in the month of July in that, but rebounded to take Sylvan Lake to the limit in the playoffs. So, the Okotoks Dogs were the Okotoks Dogs.
Maybe the only non-surprise of the season.
Yeah. Well, they got surprised in the playoffs too.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
And a sweep again. So that was a bit of a surprise.
Yes.
But Saskatoon falling off from their record-breaking win of 2025, and then the Moose Jaw Miller Express had to be a surprise. They were dominant throughout.
Yeah.
I got to see them here in Lethbridge in July, and they were a really solid team. So that was a really great thing to see for Moose Jaw fans. Regina was, I don't know what the word is, but they were kind of up and down all year long, and they got into the playoffs, got a bit of a roll at the end to get in the playoffs, and then. Wow, it came down to they almost knocked off the Berries.
Yeah.
If they had knocked off the Berries, what would have happened then? Because, Regina had that same run last year. So all kinds of drama and excitement, I think, to make this season very memorable for all the teams in the league.
Very memorable as well, Kevin. I was just going to mention about the fact that you had two of the newer franchises in the championship. What do you think that says about the league and the competitiveness there? Is like usually you talk expansion and it's like they're the doormats for a few years. These two teams have been competitors right from the get-go and get to meet in the ultimate championship in 2026.
You haven't been paying attention to the Vegas Golden Knights, have you? But anyways, that aside, no, it's great to see both teams in the playoffs and in the championship series, and it's great for Saskatoon to capture a title. They were around the league as the whatever their previous iteration was, and then now the Berries have come along and up the ante and put on a really tremendous product for the community of Saskatoon. So it's great to see, and they should be really proud of their accomplishments.
Sticking with Saskatoon, but I'm going to rewind a little bit and go all the way back to opening week to the Carnduff, the Rural Roots Classic that was held in Carnduff. By all reports, went really well. Last year's event in Oyen went really well by all reports. What are the plans going forward with the Rural Roots Classic, and can we expect an announcement or anything coming soon for next year?
We are really happy with the first 2 years of the Rural Roots Classic. I think we've, other than the wind in Cardiff that I heard was not that, and I don't know. The wind in Oyen the day before was like, I don't know. We've got to convince the wind gods to stay away from.
Got to find somewhere, a small community with a dome, Kevin. We got to get a dome.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I fully expect the Rural Roots Classic will be back in 2027. There's communities that have expressed an interest in it, which is exciting. That they see the potential of this and want to showcase the WCBL in their towns. And we have so many proud baseball communities across Alberta and Saskatchewan that I don't think there's going to be a problem putting this on for years to come.
Well, just follow-up question to that quickly, and then I'll let Joe take over. Is it going to be alternating back and forth, or is it kind of just year-by-year basis at this point? Because obviously you've had one in Alberta, one in Saskatchewan now. Does it have to alternate, or are you kind of open to ideas?
I think it's nice to alternate. However, it's not locked in stone, so I'm not going to commit one way or the other that it's going to be that way. But we do have places in both provinces interested in that. So I think there's an advantage to alternating it. The All-Star game is kind of started to go down that road finally. So, it's going to be a really exciting thing for the All-Star game and the Royal Roots to carry on. So I don't know whether right now it's lined up so that they're both in the same province. So maybe that's something we have to look at too, is getting them alternating that way too. So nothing's decided, I guess, is the short answer.
For sure.
For sure. Question as far as the season that we just saw. Again, one of the big things going out of 25 was, hey, Mother Nature, would you mind not being so rain-filled? And then Mother Nature said, no bueno. And here we are talking about, I just wanted to know from a league standpoint, how challenging has it been this season to deal with the ebbs and flows of the schedule because Mother Nature was so wet to everybody, especially in June?
I don't know why we put so much effort into the damn schedule in November and October. These teams say, well, we got to play this day. Well, yeah, you got to play that day until the rain comes, and then you're not playing that day. So, it's frustrating. The lot of moving parts. I feel for the umpires that have to deal with the as you call it, the ebbs and flows. But this year with a record number of rainouts in the league was just unbelievable. It seemed like my phone was going off. It could just anywhere between 1 and 5 every day, if numerous times. And oh God, what's happening now? And sure enough, it's another rain situation. And it wasn't just one province or the other; it was both all at the same time. So it was definitely challenging. And you couple that with the rain and field challenges with the Energy City team, and it was a lot of extra work put in to make sure that the majority of the games got played.
Mm-hmm. You segued really well into my next question now, because I was going to mention that a lot of the challenges around that scheduling happen to be around a lot of the rain, even in July for that matter, for the Edmonton region. Give us a status update on the Cactus Rats now that the dust has settled on the season. I know that there was conversation around, okay, we're going to have to meet as a board of governors and decide what's next. Give us a bit of a what's to come for this situation, so we can maybe avoid that whole situation as we head towards 2027.
Yeah, first of all, I think we should give a shout out to Jordan Blundell and his coachings and the team from Energy City for their perseverance in 2026, because they had a lot of challenges to deal with and a lot of road warrior type statuses, moving them from park to park to park to try to get their games in. And they persevered and actually made the playoffs. And they didn't have a great run in the playoffs, but they still made it to the dance. So I think that aside, the board of governors is going to meet early in the fall here, and have a plan in place so that we can try to avoid any kind of situations like that. Obviously, we're hoping that the park is being have all the deficiencies tidied up and move forward with as quickly as possible. But we haven't got a status update in a number of weeks now, so we stand by waiting to hear what they have to say, and the board of governors, ultimately it's in their hands.
I'm sure that will be.
What's your message?
Oh yeah, no, you go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say one really quick follow-up on that, especially from a Spruce Grove and surrounding area perspective. What's maybe the league's message to the fan base there heading into the offseason?
I've been very careful not to tell them anything that isn't true from a league perspective. So I don't want to give them any huge negativity or huge optimism right now, because we aren't getting regular reports on what's happening. Ultimately, the board of governors will be looking for those updates, and we'll make that decision at that point. Whereas we want the team to happen as much as everyone else wants it to happen, and we're basically a client of their, or I don't know how you word it, but we're in this thing as thick as a season ticket holder or as a sponsor is. They're 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 the entity that has to control their destiny in that region, and it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, that'll be one of the bigger topics that a lot of fans will be keeping their eye on over the offseason. But in terms of, you mentioned the Board of Governors a lot. I'm sure there will be several meetings over the offseason as well on other things. What are some of the other things now that you can take away from this season that you will anticipate will be discussion points going into maybe changes or anything going into the offseason?
I think that you're going to see a discussion on the composition of rosters. A lot of teams struggle with the schedule that we have, with the length of the schedule. There may be a move to shorten it a little bit. I think that teams have to be prepared to try to get players to give them firm commitments, whether they want to be here through the end of the season, and try to avoid the mass casualties, as I like to call it, from teams later in July or August. So I think there's lots of things that the teams can share with each other and come up with a plan that's going to work for both the fan base and the schedule. I mean, I'm one that I hate to see. I mean, I hate right now. It's what are we at? The 19th of August, and or 18th of August, I guess it is today, and there's no baseball anymore, and that's kind of sad because it's going to be pretty nice weather for the next month.
Right. Yeah.
There's not a lot we can do about that in the WCBL because these players have commitments at where they're getting their education, which is the most important thing for them. So, we try to go right to the bitter end with our schedule, and weather is one of the main reasons why. People love coming to the ballparks later in July and into August rather than in a rainy, cool, blustery June day.
Mm-hmm. Last one from me, Kevin. When you look ahead to 2027, what excites you the most?
Oh, I haven't even thought about that yet. I mean, that's
when you look ahead to tomorrow, what excites you the most?
There won't be a rain out.
Yeah, right. That's a good one.
I just think that we've done a great job of building a foundation now. We've got some pretty good community league-wide sponsors in place now. We've started to build that base up. The broadcasts in the league have gone up. So I don't think we're going to break any records with broadcasting like MLB does, but we can put a pretty good product out there for the fans of the league to see and watch their team both on the road and at home, and other teams in the league as well. So it's really that Alberta Saskatchewan League that is proud of its roots and is proud of how far we've come in the last couple of decades, and just how do we add to the next chapter of the Western Canadian Baseball League.
For sure. Now, last one for me, and then we'll let you go, Kev. Felt like there was a lot of optimism and positivity around crowds over the course of the summer, at least that I saw. A couple teams mentioning that they might have been setting some records. I saw Fort McMurray doing some really cool stuff up north with some big fans, and the Hawaiian jersey night seemed to go off really well, and some other communities as well putting up some big crowd numbers, it seemed like, at least. From your sense, in terms of just an overseer, what's your sense right now on the strength of these teams right now across the league? I know we just talked about Energy City, so maybe we can leave that one. But the other 11 communities, the strength of where they're at right now, how does it feel?
Yeah, it's really. I mean, optimism is very much a good word to use. You know, I haven't heard much negativity from any of the other 11 franchises in the league. Even the smaller markets seem to be getting more successful with how they're operating their models. Um, the mid market teams are still getting people in the turnstiles, and the Saskatoons, the Sylvan Lakes, the Okatokses are still packing them in, and Regina not far behind, and they've got a behemoth of an organization that is going to be able to hopefully take them to another level in the coming years with what we hope is a new ballpark in Regina. So I think that there's lots of optimism to go around, and yeah, let's get going on that ballpark.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's what you're looking forward
where's
to.
the groundbreaking ceremony? When is that?
Yeah, let's get the shovels out. Let's go. And last one, I lied to you. Last one for me. Obviously, some news came out this morning. I don't know how busy you've been if you saw it, but Carter Beck getting promoted from low A to high A already. He's only played like a week. He's already moving up in the world. It seemed like when I asked Joe on a weekly basis this summer about alumni updates, it was a lot of really good stuff coming out from WCBL alumni. From your perspective, you've seen a lot of these guys come through this league, and now they're moving on to bigger and better things. How does it feel to see the news on Carter Beck and just in general some of the guys who are moving their way up in the world in baseball?
Oh, anytime we can have success with players moving up the ladder in Major League Baseball or other professional baseball is a feather in the cap of the WCBL. Carter was a tremendous asset for our league for the time he was in the league, and we really saw his growth even in the Western Canadian Baseball League, and now you're seeing it continue in Major League Baseball or in the Major League Baseball system. So that's great, and you can go through the other players that are having tremendous years even in Major League Baseball that have roots in this league. So it's I know all the franchises and the coaches and leadership of the teams in the league are really proud when that happens.
Perfect. Well, Kevin, appreciate you joining us here today. Off-season starts pretty soon, so I'm sure that there'll be conversations getting underway, so we'll let you get back to it. But appreciate you, and we'll chat again down the road.
All right, take care, guys.
Back here again on the show, Ian Wilson, as we dissect now some of the things that Kevin Kvame said during his appearance on the WCBL report, and also do a little bit of pontificating ourselves on what 2027 might have in store. But Ian, I think the big, I'll call it elephant in the room, the cactus rat in the room, whatever you want to call it, it's going to start with that. That feels like that's going to be topic of conversation, around the Board of Governors table. Obviously, we have some awards and some all-star selections and that kind of stuff that's going to get announced before too long. But as mentioned, there's going to be that earlier than expected AGM coming up where they're going to decide what's next for the Energy City Cactus Rats in Spruce Grove. Tell me a little bit about what you expect around the table. What kinds of things are you maybe looking for, or maybe some of the questions that you'd like to see maybe answered over the course of the next couple months here as we get ready to put a schedule together for 2027?
Well, I think there has to be a resolution there in some way, shape, or form. There was an expectation that all home games for the Cactus Rats would be played in Spruce Grove. Not necessarily with fans, but that the games would happen there. And I believe by the end of it, it was 11 of 28 scheduled dates that took place. And that puts a lot of strain on the entire league when you've got an untenable situation there. So that it just has to be resolved so that, what that resolution is, I can't say. I don't have a feeling one way or the other, but it's certainly topic of discussion around the league, topic of discussion with the fans. Certainly people in the community are tuned into that and aware of what's happening, or trying to be aware of what's happening. And the league has a responsibility to make sure all of the franchises are are operating as well as they can, right? And so again, I'm not going to sit here and give you solutions, but I think we are going to see an AGM take place earlier than the December. It's often in December. It should take place before then, and the schedule. You've got to get to a place where you're setting a schedule early enough to also do ticket sales for Christmas and things like that. It's a year-round operation. I know it's like a few months in the summer, and like that's kind of what you see on field. But the marketing, the sales, the scheduling, all of it, the fundraising dinners and things like that it just takes place throughout the year. So you need to have some sort of resolution. I'm not sure what the Board of Governors' appetite is going to be. Is there going to be deadlines that are put in place in terms of benchmarks that have to be met? Some of that has been done, and then the benchmarks have not been reached. I think that's kind of what got us into some trouble in terms of in terms of games not taking place at that time. And so I'm not trying to be evasive on it. I honestly am just like, there's got to be a resolution. I think there's a frustration in the community. There's a frustration with some of the teams that may have to move venues on a short notice. And it's not fair to bring players up from the United States and around the world and other parts of Canada and not give them as positive an experience in our league as they can. That the organization, the Cactus Rats, did a decent job of just making sure that the team could still play and the athletes still got an experience. But I think we'll want to see that be an optimal experience for any athletes coming to that market in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point about the evasiveness, I don't blame you for that at all, because as Kevin pointed out in that chat with Clark and myself, is the league was hoping to get a few updates on a weekly basis, and they didn't necessarily get that. He mentioned, I believe he said the term was, we haven't received an update in a number of weeks, right? And so even Kevin Kvame didn't want to necessarily marry himself to one outcome or another. And I think the other question mark in all of this is, what kinds of apparatuses does the league have in this situation? Do they have, I don't know whether it's do you set deadlines? Do you need to have certain expectations? What is it? I know a lot of people have said, hey, can they get a year leave of absence, or can the league boot the team out? We don't know. And again, a part of that will have to depend on whether or not there's an appetite around the Board of Governors table to actually go through with something like that. And I can't get quite a good gauge on whether or not anybody wants to really attach themselves to any one situation until they know exactly what extent the field is at right now. And I think the big thing, and Kevin did allude to it, I think the one thing that we are safe to say is there's almost zero appetite around the league table right now to have what's happened over the last two seasons happen again in 2027. So how do you get there becomes the multi-million-dollar question, probably. And so it'll be interesting to see how the Board of Governors feel after getting an update at some point, likely in the next, I would say, month and a half, maybe. And I wouldn't be shocked, between you and I, Ian, and anybody listening, I wouldn't be shocked if there's a deadline of, say, October 31st to have some sort of benchmarks in place. And the reason I say October 31st is because it's at that point that the league's going to want to start working on that schedule and get things ready to go. So as you mentioned, you can start promoting, selling A, sponsorships, but B, selling season tickets, selling day tickets, all those kinds of things. So again, that's going to be the big one that sets a lot of wheels in motion.
Yeah, I think too. I think you're setting October 31st just for storylines, so you can have a Halloween themed headline emerge from it. The journalist in you is always working that way. I think too, it's just important to note that whatever you or I would do to address the situation, or some of the fans certainly have thoughts and suggestions, it's not up to us. It's up to that Board of Governors. And you're right, they do have a lot to consider. They have to consider the healthiness of that franchise as well as all of the franchises. They have to consider any legal ramifications, any market, any promotional situations, sponsorships. They have to consider all these things. All that stuff comes into play. So how it's handled and what is done, they'll have more information regarding the league and how it's operating and how to proceed there. And some of the stuff that fans may not be thinking about, saying something like, "Oh, just kick them out." Well, that okay, like you can say that, you can express that sentiment, but what does that look like, and what does that set off, and what is, I don't think anything is ever as simplistic as that. And honestly, like, I think for you and I and for Kevin and for everyone in the league, honestly, the best outcome, and the thing that we've all wanted is to have a stadium there, a functioning, fully operational stadium that is, hosting great games and great events. That's what we wanted from the get-go. So let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
That's the desired outcome. Can we get there? I don't know, but that's what has to be deliberated.
For sure. On to some other things. The one storyline that I kind of took away from our conversation with Kevin, and maybe you've got others, happens to be around the schedule. Is there a potential where we're going to see a little bit of a shorter schedule? And part of the reasoning and rationale behind it is the fact they're kind of a twofold thing. One is he alluded to it, is teams are having a hard time with the roster sizes because they almost need to expand it more to allow for more players to get signed on, especially in the latter half of the season. I'll note a team like Fort McMurray, who was out of the running in the playoffs fairly late into the season, had maybe 12 or 13 guys on the roster against Sylvan Lake. That's a big trouble if Fort Mac's in the playoff spot. There's a few others who are starting to lose some numbers here. Do you get the sense that maybe we might be seeing some movement afoot when it comes to the schedule, and maybe some roster composition changes as well?
Yeah, the schedule is going to be a topic of discussion, and I think is every single year, even if it's just different markets vying for different dates on the calendar. So it's always contentious. My favorite part of that interview with Kevin was when he said, "I don't know why we put so much damn time and importance on creating the schedule, in reference to all the rainouts." And I just
for 2 years too. Don't
that.
mind you. Like, it was one thing a year ago or 2 years ago. It was like, I think we had 9 rainouts. Last year was 35. This year was 40. Yeah. Like, Mother Nature certainly has it in for WCBL baseball right now.
Yeah, it's true. So, like I say, it's always going to be contentious, or people have opinions on. I know there's a push within some markets to have a balanced schedule. There's always, some that's important to some people, and to other people it's not. So I know too, like, when the playoff dates are set for it, that can become a topic of discussion. And I think the bottom line is there's no perfect dates, right? Like Kevin also mentioned how, we're getting into the back half of August here when we've got some really nice weather. That's all well and good, but you also have a lot of athletes who are like, sorry, I either have to get home and spend like a week or a couple days with my family before I go off to school, or the programs are a little more, the controlling of what they want out of their student athletes. They want them there early. They want to get team bonding going, team camps, all of that. And, it's hard to really assert your team wishes over a school program's wishes, or if they're in conflict, what does that look like, right? So there's no perfect schedule, like, for sure. And I think too, the other thing that we've seen is maybe advocacy for a system where you've got, instead of like one-off games, like a team comes through, plays one game, goes up the road, comes back, maybe where you see an actual series. I mean,
Yeah.
either 2-game series or 3-game series. Like have teams stay in one spot, maybe make the travel a little less grueling, and also stimulates what you kind of see in Major League Baseball. The one thing I'll say in favor of that 56 game, not a lot of break schedules, for those athletes who really are chasing the MLB dream or the minor league dream, basically professional baseball dream, I actually think the WCBL simulates like a portion of the season. Like, here's a taste of what it's like to just always be going, to kind of, what city am I in now? What's like you can either view that as a negative, like it's too much, like it's a grind, it's all those things. That, like, some athletes want that. Some are getting a taste or getting preparation for life at the pro level, where you're always on the go, you're always at the ballpark. And some athletes like that, and some want that, and others are like, I just kind of want to come up here for summer vacation. So, I think it is kind of what it is, and like I said, I'm sure there'll be lots of discussion on the schedule, and I'm not sure where it's going to land, but we'll see what they come up with in terms of resolutions there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all if we saw more series that are built into the calendar. And the biggest reason for it, more than anything else, interestingly, is A, it builds a little bit of a rivalry, but B, especially in this day and age where I don't know if you check the pump price and how it's like in BC right now, but I know here in my neck of the woods, it was $1.79.9. And if you can drop that price because you're not going from place to place to place to place to place to place to place, all in the matter of a 6-game stretch, then that's going to make life a little bit easier, especially for those teams who are on smaller budgets, as an example. So I'll be curious to see how the conversation goes in that regard. And there's a lot of other things that are going to be talked about, I'm sure. I know there's a lot of consternation around the table, not just from the Sylvan Lake Gulls, but even the Saskatoon Berries were not overly impressed with how the John Boy Rittenhouse suspension came to be. Does there need to be a change in the rules for playoffs when it comes to late inning ejections and subsequent suspensions? Did there need to be a more wholesome conversation around the table? We don't necessarily know that, but I'm sure it's going to garner up a little bit of attention around the Board of Governors table as well. And as always, Ian and I will be doing our best to cover as much as possible what we're allowed to be a part of as far as the conversations are concerned. Whenever they happen, we'll keep you updated when we can. One final question for you, Ian Wilson, before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your vacation here. What excites you the most as we head towards the 2027 WCBL season?
Well, to be honest, I am excited to see some kind of resolution with Spruce Grove and see what that looks like. Because, I think it's important we get a fully functional and fully engaged and exciting presence in that Edmonton area. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. And I'm also, it's one of my favorite times of the year. I love being at the ballpark. I love kind of not knowing who's going to do what. At the beginning of this year, I thought, look out for Okotoks. Like, they're probably going to be ticked off after losing last year. I think they'll come into every season feeling that way. And then just seeing, what happens with the Sylvan, like, go down the list with every market. Like Sylvan Lake, it's going to be a little heartbroken, but they've got the All-Star game. They've got lots to look forward to. Can they keep their dominance in the West in terms of the playoffs going? And, just all those things. The mysteries of a new season are always great. And everyone's the top team in the league on day one. They're also the bottom team in the league on opening day. But just that wonder and excitement, and the athletes emerging. We saw Jake Hiramoto come out of nowhere this year and just smashed the RBI and home run record. And my understanding is he's coming back next year. What does that guy do for an encore?
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. So the athletes are great, and to seeing what the teams can put together over the course of the season is always fun.
One of the things that I've loved about this league over the last number of years is it feels as though every team can beat every other team on any given night. And it was highlighted this year, especially in the East. It felt like there was some evening things out, and it was down to the wire. Swift Current Weyburn made life miserable for the Regina Red Sox and the Medicine Hat Mavericks, who did make it into the dance, although they were both beaten in the first round. But if they can keep making some steps forward, and if Regina and Medicine Hat don't make the appropriate moves, or if Saskatoon sees a bunch of guys that don't come back, or if Moose Jaw, they're going to have to go through some change, that could be an interesting division. And then over on the other side, can Fort Mac and Brooks get over that hump and get themselves into a legitimate playoff spot? Does Energy City make their way into the fold where they've got a stadium that's got fans and all that kind of stuff is going to be important? Then does Lethbridge, Sylvan Lake, and Okotoks continue to cement themselves as the 1, 2, and 3 teams in that division? We're going to find out in a few months' time. But until then, we've got a ton of other baseball coverage that we're going to give you over the coming weeks and months as we head towards the off-season. Ian, enjoy your off-season with a little bit of vacation time. Thanks for taking a little bit of time during it, and we'll catch up with you very, very soon.
Thank you so much, Joe. And if I could just last second here, give you a big shout out for all the coverage that you've supplied all year, both through the podcast, in written form, on the WCBL report. Kudos to Clark Monroe and the rest of the IKS media crew, and then Joe Whitbread, who also handles the WCBL social media landscape alongside me. So just a great work from the communications team, and just love seeing the content, reading the content, and hearing the content in various forms. So take the bow and enjoy your off season.
Well, I hope you take a bow too, good sir, because you are a big reason why this is all happening the way it does. So take a bow yourself, my friend.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Ian Wilson and Kevin Kvame for joining us, and thanks to all of you for downloading and listening. We're going to have another episode ready for you later this week to get you all caught up on the big news and notes from around the baseball world, including Matt Wilkinson's big league debut and Carter Beck's promotion. Plus, we'll have a few new guests, so stay tuned for that and more as we have plenty of stories and shows to come in the weeks ahead. A tip of the cap, as always, to our Platinum supporters, the Okotoks Dogs, for their generosity in helping us tell the game stories in our province. If you'd like to join our roster or check out all of our tremendous teammates, head to albertadugoutstories.com/supporters. Until next time, thank you for all of your support, online, on social, and on air, of Alberta Dugout Stories.